1.
Morning, everybody. This is Wesley Hudson, Chair of Prosperity and Livability Committee. I'd like to call us to order today. In the building, we have Councilmember Cyril Jefferson, Councilmember Monica Peters, and myself. Councilmember Michael Holmes will be joining us shortly. We only have one item on the agenda this morning. I will turn it over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you, members of the committee. Kind of going to go through just a few brief slides, and then we're going to fire up the city's website to kind of show you what the budget division and the marketing division have been working on in the creation of kind of a bond tracking website for the 2019 general obligation bonds. After we kind of walk you through that, show you what we've put together, staff are here to answer any questions about those specific projects. And so just kind of an overview of the purpose. The intent was to provide information and continuous status updates on the projects that were funded from the 2019 bond referendum. The Budget and Evaluation Division was tasked with coordinating a website to track these 2019 bond projects. Kind of information we were looking for: project descriptions, status updates, budget, etc. The information was gathered by budget with the assistance of the departments that are involved directly with the projects. We provided that information to the marketing division, and they created separate web pages for each bond order. So there's a separate page for housing, for streets and sidewalks, and then for parks and recreation. As I noted, the project information we wanted to show: the description of the project, the budgeted amount, current amount that's been spent and or committed, and status updates. On the status updates, we update these quarterly, or we would update them if there was a major change in project phase. For example, if we were in the engineering phase and then council awarded the construction contract, we would provide that update so the most recent status is available to those who are looking at it. The last update you'll see on the website we currently have was as of June 30th, 2022. We're about to end the first quarter, and so about mid-October we should be providing the next quarterly update. This is the URL, but rather than just click on this, I'll kind of walk through if you were to start at the main city website and just kind of show you what you have. So main city website, if you go to government, departments, and click on budget and evaluation, you'll see a picture of myself there to the right. A few years ago. To the left, we have kind of different drop downs, and then so we have one at the top named bond projects. And so if you click on that, we have kind of an overview page just talking about when the bonds were approved, the total amount, the different amounts per each bond order, and then separate kind of links to click for the areas, and they're also there to the left. And so start with housing and just kind of go down. The one housing project, replacing the Daniel Brooks complex, we have just a short description about the project. The amount spent, committed. Committed could also mean funds encumbered. So if we awarded a construction contract, but construction had just began, we would show that as committed. We felt that was just the most consistent way to show that. And then status. And so current status was as of July 2022, when the Housing Authority got approval from the Local Government Commission for increased authorization due to increased construction costs. Moving on to Parks and Recreation. There are two projects from the 2019 bond referendum for Parks and Recreation. There's the replacement of the senior center, which kind of note here. Again, description, amount, no dollars have been spent or committed yet. And as you can see on the status, the site selection process has begun. You also notice we have photographs. Since this project is still kind of in the early phases, they're just using the renderings from when these projects were initially proposed, but here for the City Lake project, marketing went out and was able to get some active construction photos of what's going on. And so one note on the City Lake Park project, you'll notice that there's more than just the voter-approved $9.5 million from that 2019 bond. There are many other revenue sources, and so since that shows the full width of this project, we wanted to include all of them. You'll see that also on one of the streets and sidewalk projects. And so the total project cost currently for this phase is a little over $24.5 million, made up by all of those different sources.
And it looks amazing, I might add.
Thank you. Kudos to the marketing division on that. I simply provided the information, and they were able to use their creative skills.
Tell
So
me interfund loan?
that is through the Solid Waste Post-Disclosure Fund, and that was when the contract for the construction, there was the 9.5 million, which had initially been from the bonds, then the 2/3 bonds, the 5.3, the interfund loan, the 8.3 million, that made up that contract at that time.
That's in-house?
Yes. Yeah, repayments of that interfund loan should start in the FY24 budget. And then status, plan design completed in April 2021. Construction began in May 21. Project expected to be completed next month. Obviously, if that happens prior to our updates, that would be something that would trigger us to update the status and also update any pictures that we would need to show for anyone who may be looking at this. And then lastly, on the streets and sidewalks, three projects here. Burton Avenue, and so again, these are just kind of the renderings. Just to, if anyone wasn't sure where Burton Avenue, or new to the city, didn't know where Burton Avenue was. This project does have additional dollars with the bond premium, which was $605,000, so that gets you to that 5.6 million. This project has $0 spent committed. As you can see from the status update, design is being completed, right-of-way acquisition, construction scheduled for late FY 23-24. The next transportation project is Washington Street Realignment. Project will improve the eroding slope, threatening the road subgrade, shift the roadway, stabilize the slope. The existing pedestrian bridge will also be evaluated. So this project cost us $5 million, none spent committed. You can kind of see the status update there. I will note on this one and some of the other transportation ones, and we may need to look at how this would kind of show up, but there are utility aspects to these that are budgeted in our utility budgets on the water, sewer, and the electric. We may see what it looks like adding that to this, but for the current iteration, we don't have those included. And then the last street and sidewalks project from the 2019 bond order, the Triangle Lake Road. Long description there, $12 million amount, spent committed, almost $1.5 million. We are in the design phase for this project, currently on schedule per our June 30th update. And so that's kind of just what we've put together. We'll be constantly updating it quarterly or more as we need to. I'd be happy to answer any questions about kind of setting up the budgets for these or setting up these, and I believe staff are here from Transportation, Public Services, I believe Mr. Duquesne, to answer any recreation questions on the specific projects.
Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. This is Councilman Jefferson. So I think it was a couple months ago, I had outreach from residents and business and property owners over on Washington Street who were just curious about the progress of the project. And at the time they asked, is there a website or anything about this where we can go to? So it was helpful at the moment to be able to share that information with them. But then it started prompting my thinking that if this, this group is the residents, the property owners, the business owners right here in the street, really the main stakeholders who are going to be impacted, businesses, properties disrupted when we start the project and things of that nature. And I began to think to myself, is there a way just through some outreach that we could maybe, and I don't know what the cadence looks like, but some sort of intentional on our end outreach to make sure folks are aware of how things are going. I think in many cases where there's this absence of communication, folks are just kind of curious about, hey, sort of they asked for money. We've not heard anything. I mean, people literally said to me, did y'all take the money and run? And I said, no, I mean, the project's going. It's, we've had meetings. They said, well, yeah, we've not met in like 2 years, right? I think we had a meeting at Moorhead. Some of you guys were there, and it was a great meeting. But folks were like, we've not heard anything since then. And I said, well, it's still going. And so I think it's great to have the website. And I'm also wondering if there's some other form, whether it's through our public engagement communications department, just to ensure that we're checking in with folks, something of that nature. And I don't have the exact answer, but I am curious about that, so that way folks are just aware.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager. So to your point, Council Member, we did attend a recent Washington Street neighborhood meeting because Jackie actually reached out and she's like, hey, what's going on with this project? So this is a good broad overview of projects with a quarterly update. Like sitting there, some of the, we've shared some recent updates like on Burton Street and some other things that'll come out in the next update that Mr. Haverluck just described. But I think more on the individual project management side of things, we can do more local outreach to the stakeholders through that process and keep this more broad and sort of, target those communications to the folks who, either live along or in the area of the projects. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I want to say how much I appreciate you all going to that Washington Street meeting. They really appreciated being able to ask all those questions and get all that insight. And a lot of times, folks are fine as long as someone's talking to them, I think, as long as folks can hear what's going on. If we can just, on our end, because sometimes they don't always email us when they have a concern that says, I've not heard anything. They just talk kind of amongst other folks and say, hey, y'all remember when we approved all that money, we've not heard anything. And so we'd love to, as best as we can, mitigate and get ahead of that. And if we can replicate some more of that, attending some meetings, some kind of quarterly cadence or something of that sort, I think that could be really helpful. Even if it's also maybe some stuff that we're dropping on social media. The City Lake stuff is fantastic, and I know folks are getting excited about that. And as we continue to drum up more drum up more excitement, I think that can be helpful.
So one thing that I would offer up to is I think we probably can do better on our setting of expectations as we move forward. When bonds are approved, often residents think they vote for them and it'll happen next year.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we can do in our messaging is probably provide a better expectation for project delivery. So historically, Parks and Recreation usually delivers quickest, and the reason they deliver quickest is because you own the property most often. The exception here is Oakview is a site selection exercise to try to find the right location. The difficulty with transportation projects is not only do you have design, you have utilities, you have right of way, and you have a lot of people affected. So you're looking at a 6 to 7 year window. So I think part of that is setting expectations, and certainly COVID didn't help us with having neighborhood meetings, but we can certainly look at a neighborhood meeting, perhaps a newsletter or something, whatever we get some feedback on from the council and from the residents, we might be able to do something, more direct now that we're able to meet.
It might be possible to keep contact with people like Jackie Davis that are specific to certain areas.
The neighborhood leaders might be an option, bring them in and just say, here's what's going on and can you share it? Damon took a little tour with Reverend Thomas the other day, so we're working on trying to do that. So, but we're open to complete feedback from what will work best for the neighborhood itself.
Yeah. And even, I wouldn't mind, this sort of being presented at the next council meeting, Chairman Hudson, just so where there's more eyes and more ears listening in on our meeting, folks can kind of get a general update that says, here's where we are, things are on progress, we're excited about these openings, here's, sort of these updates. What are your thoughts?
I'm fine with that. I think that would certainly help public eye as well.
We can do a 5-minute version of this.
This is Councilman Holmes. I think also if there's literature produced that can be put in strategic areas in the neighborhood with a timeline as close as that we can get it, in a step-by-step process of how the bond process works, and then project timeline that is easy to follow, and we can put that around the neighborhood spots so that people can visually see how these things are progressing and the project is progressing and what to expect. Because, you can put a range of time that between this time and this time, these are some of the things that the project will deliver. And you don't have to necessarily be specific on when those deliverables are. It's just people will know that what's happening during these periods of time and how long that they should possibly take. So I think that helps visually to allow people to give a visual representation of what to expect.
And you know, the Burton Avenue area, it doesn't have any neighborhood association, and there's lots of neighborhoods out there, so maybe I should get with Michelle and see
I think
if
that'd
we
be
can do that. But so I was just, while we were talking, I just kind of Googled, and I went to our website, but I didn't go to the exact link but I put up like bond project status, and it goes back to 2016, and it doesn't have any, it's got the Hartley Drive, Lindsay Street. So I'm wondering if in a search engine, because people may not know exactly where to go to budget and evaluations, I wonder if there's some way in a search engine that if you put like Burton Avenue or Washington Street, it could link it to the,
I'll speculate that I assume that's something that can be done.
Okay.
I'll discuss with our marketing folks,
Yeah.
and communication and public engagement. I'll defer to them as the subject experts, but I'm sure there's just need to code it the right way, and
Okay.
and hopefully then it would come up. So, you type in High Point bond projects,
Yeah.
the assumption to be that one of the first results will come back instead of having to
Yeah.
go through 3 or 4 steps. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll look into that and see if we can rectify that.
perfect.
Sounds like a search engine optimization, ultimately. Yeah. Chairman Hudson, the other thought that sort of bubbles up to the surface in terms of what we may be looking to do at some point, it helps if we're staying in touch with folks about current bond projects, and I think that gives more confidence down the road when we come back to them to vote on future bond projects, if we're staying in touch. And folks know that, the bond money that you got the last time, things are going well with that. And I know, there was a recent bond vote done at the county level that was successful, but one of the things they had to be really intentional about doing was combating some of the misinformation about previous allocation of bond funds, right? So they had to be really intentional about making sure folks were aware, like, you voted on bonds before, and it's on progress, everything's checking the way it needs to, you can have confidence to vote this next go-round. And so just thinking about that before we need to get to it, already allowing folks to know, things are in good hands.
Any other questions for anyone here? We have full staff here, so any questions for the departments? Can I ask, Greg, do we have a request form for sidewalks?
We don't have a form specifically, but we do have a pedestrian plan. People can submit requests to us. They can call the department. So we do have a running list of projects. It's fairly long, so.
I understand that.
Yeah, we'll take a request and then we'll rank those projects and put them in the list and wherever they fall out.
Right.
We can.
Okay. Does Parks and Rec control their own sidewalks?
No, I think they did bring their master plan, but everything is sidewalk related submitted.
Even on the parks?
They control their own parks themselves, so that
Okay.
would all work. We don't have to control any of that, just outside of the park areas. You go to the parks.
Right. Inside the park, Parks and Recs do their own sidewalks. Okay.
I have a question, if
Yes.
I may. So, sorry, back to Burton Avenue, but, and, I know that sidewalks are great, and it's a great, aesthetic and fun, but that actually is safety. So I'm wondering, I don't know the status, I think it's like 2024, 2025, when that's going to be done. Is there anything that we can do for safety? I mean, the situation with that scenario is that a lot of the folks in the neighborhoods there do not have cars, and they walk to Food Line to get groceries. So then they're walking back, maybe with a child in their hand, groceries, and there's not only is there not a sidewalk, there's like, and you can see footpaths. I get so many calls, even people that don't live in the neighborhood but drive that road, saying, Monica, we are so afraid that we're going to see somebody get hit. Is there anything that we can do, and temporary, some kind of safety measure?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at that. It's a little bit difficult when you have areas like that where there is a narrow roadway, there's no shoulder for folks to walk on, there's ditch sections out there, so it makes it difficult, and we have locations like that throughout the city, but we can take a look at those areas and see if there's anything in the temporarily that we can do, but it gets difficult. So that's, with this bond project, we'll alleviate that. I know it's a while before it's going to be implemented and constructed, but we can take a look at those areas and see if there's anything we can do in the meantime.
Yeah, I've got a comment. Just wanted to say how much we appreciate staff. I know, you mentioned COVID back in 2020 and how that's disrupted things. But I know we've had a number of retirements here in the city, and that has led to a lot of turnover and new folks coming in. And I gotta say how much I appreciate staff and the incredible work y'all have done to, quite frankly, hold things together. To see so many things still on project in terms of status, they're still on progress in terms of their status. I think it's really impressive. I just want to say thank you to you all for that. Mr. Chairman, I would love to, because Mayor Pro Tem Peters brought up a point. I was in a meeting yesterday where someone was sharing the results of a needs assessment that was done. And the focus was parenting education, but they started talking about all the factors that contribute to a lack of education that gets to happen for parents getting their kids to the pediatric appointments. And the number one factor that came up had to just do with transportation. But there was a number of other things too, in terms of childcare, workforce, there was a bunch of stuff too. But in terms of like what really falls into our scope that perked my ears, just kept bubbling up in terms of transportation. And would love to know, I know we had an update. I feel like Angela Wines came in, was it last year, and kind of gave us an update on how that plan was to expand and where we stand in terms of trying to get more drivers hired and things of that nature. Is there any way that we could maybe schedule during one of these conversations an update on that so we can learn and maybe ask some questions?
Yeah, we can, so the next P&L committee, we've got a couple topics that are kind of teed up, so that might be one that we could have Angela come in and kind of give an overview. We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate you saying that. My wife's a pediatrician, as you know, and 75% of the patients, that's their most difficult thing, is simply transportation, getting there. And I also would point out that every single person sitting in this room is in a different position than they were 5 years ago, or are new hires. I mean, you're right about turnover and retirements. Every single head in here has happened within the last 5 years, every one of them.
Yeah. We don't need that to be the case 5 years from now.
No.
Not happening.
Just FYI.
Robbie's got a lot more years than that, Chair.
FYI. No, but seriously.
Thank you for
y'all.
coming today, Robbie, by the way. Any updates for us?
Got a lot of water and sewer replacements.
Yes.
Yeah, it's number one.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you all so much for being here. Great. And we'll bring this to full council at our next meeting. It's good. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here. Meeting adjourned.